want to see, and let me talk about foreign policy in particular, because I'm not sure this is fully appreciated. This president inherited 30 years of foreign policy that was built around what was good for the world. In essence, the decisions we made as a government in trade and foreign policy was basically, is it good for the world? Is it good for the global community? And under President Trump, we're making a foreign policy now that's, was it good for America? I was appointed by you and confirmed by the Senate to be the head of the United States Department of State. Not the World Department of State, not the Global Department of State, the United States Department of State. And what that means is our foreign policy is guided by three things. Does it make America stronger? Does it make America safer? And does it make America richer? If something doesn't do one of those three things, and hopefully all three of those things, we're not doing it. Now, we went out and hired a consulting firm to help us organize ourselves. Luckily, they were free. They're called the Department of Government Efficiency. Let's do a couple things. Number one is our foreign aid. We were funding some crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. You tell me, how does a puppet show in some country around the world make us stronger, safer, and more prosperous? So we got rid of puppet shows and a bunch of other things. I'm sure there were very good puppet shows. And I'm sure that a bunch of charities in the world can go pay for it, but the American taxpayer should not. We've also, by the way, Mr. President, under your direction, reorganized the Department of State. We had offices within offices within offices that didn't even know they existed themselves, not to mention the rest of them. And so we've begun to reorganize that as a way to be able to empower our embassies and our ambassadors and our regional bureaus to do what many of them signed up to do. And we have a great team of ambassadors you've appointed. They're coming online every single day. Very talented people that are involved. Something else we got out of the business of, wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
Was it me or Elon? We can follow up with the media story.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about the Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation. When we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. And so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that. Beyond that, Mr. President, and this I'll move quickly because this has been a team effort, we have gone to countries all over the world and said, hey, you want good relations with the United States, you need to take back your people that are here illegally. And we've had historic cooperation. Beyond that, and I say this unapologetically, we are actively searching for to take people from third countries. So we are actively, not just El Salvador, we are working with other countries to say, we want to send you some of the most despicable human beings to your countries. Will you do that as a favor to us? And the further away from America, the better, so they can't come back across the border. I'm not apologetic about it. We are doing that. The president was elected to keep America safe and to get rid of a bunch of perverts and pedophiles and child rapists out of our country. Here's something else we've done. We stopped giving student visas to people who are coming here to burn down our universities and take over libraries and harass people. Why are we giving student visas to people who are coming here to create disruption? And we've taken away the student visas of people that have come here to do that. It's simple. If you're coming to America to start riots, we're going to take away your student visa. And by the way, every country in the world that I've traveled, 14 countries in 14 weeks, you know what they all say to me? Yes, that's what we would do too. So the only people who seem to disagree with us are a handful of federal judges and a bunch of crazy people who get paid to write and report. So anyway, we're getting rid of that. The last, but now here's some good news. You know, we're going to have the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA Club Cup, and then we're going to have the Olympics. So we have to have a Consular Affairs Bureau. We have very good, talented people there, but we are going to infuse technology, again, working with our consultants, to be able to, millions of people are coming into this country for this. And, but we've done it to improve customer service. So some of us who served in Congress recognize a year and a half ago, we had a meltdown under Biden. You couldn't get a passport. You got people calling, I have a cruise on Friday, my passport expires. In the month of March, we processed 2.78 million Americans, their passports. That is the historic, it's the largest single month processing of passports ever, and we think it's a good way to build the momentum to be able to do the visas. Two last points I want to make. We have a great team that you've built. I want to especially acknowledge Steve Woodcock. This is a person that doesn't have to be doing what he's doing. He has a very good life in Miami, my hometown as well. He has worked incredibly hard, has done it without any agenda, and we need to acknowledge him. I want to acknowledge Mr. Boulos as well, who did something really great last week. They told us this war between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda is an intractable. It can never happen. It will never happen. I sent Mr. Boulos, your envoy. A week later, I look on my schedule, the signing of a declaration of peace between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. We signed it at the State Department last week. We hope it will lead now to a lasting, permanent peace that we hope to invite them back to Washington to sign. So two great, and we have a lot of good people working on our teams as well. These are two great people. Mike Waltz alluded to this earlier, and this is the last point. In the first 100 days of the 47th presidency, 47 wrongfully detained Americans have been returned to the United States, thanks to your leadership and the diplomacy that was exercised to make that happen. 47, the 47th president in the first 100 days, and that's all credit to you, Mr. President. Thank you for the honor to be able to serve alongside you, for you, and alongside all these excellent people.
Well, thank you very much, Marco. Well said. Really great job. So, you know, I've been involved in a lot of groups of people over the years, good groups, bad groups, all types of groups. But I have been involved in some incredible groups, but I've never been more proud and impressed, frankly. Impressed is maybe even more important, but I've never been more proud or impressed than I am with this group. This is an amazing group of people, and I hope some of those television cameras were blazing and it was on so people could watch this because, frankly, you know, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, this is an impressive group of people. I sat around being somewhat competitive. I said, well, let's see, who did the best job, who did the worst job? And I determined that everybody is like the same and there was no worst job. Everybody was outstanding. Everybody did a job. You couldn't pick a winner. The only thing you can say is nobody did a bad job or even a fair job. You're outstanding. And so I want to just congratulate you all. This is really something. And, you know, we have a job to do. We've done a lot of work in this 100 days. We've established things that are going to start taking place in the next 100 days. I want to see what it's going to be like. I think we're going to have this in 100 days, Susie, and we're going to see some very big results from the things that we've done. But I just want to thank everybody. This is really very impressive, and I hope the people at home got to see some of it. Nobody's ever done public cabinet meetings. They were quiet for a reason, because they weren't impressive. And especially in the last administration, they were not impressive. But I just want to say that we're very proud of you, and I am in particular. Thank you all very much. Great job, and I think we're going to have some tremendous success for our country. And I don't know, it doesn't seem like a time to be asking questions. That was so impressive, that to be taking questions, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be appropriate. I guess we probably have to take a couple because that was the purpose. But if you'd like to ask some, I think they should be very respectful questions at this point. This was an amazing meeting. And so if you'd like to ask a couple, if you'd like to pinpoint them to some of the secretaries, et cetera,
yes,
would be fine. Yes.
Secretary Rubio, can I ask you a question? You brought up El Salvador in your remarks. Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia? Has a formal request from this administration been made?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to. But I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it because that's how foreign policy works.
Mr. President, yesterday you told ABC News, Mr. President, you told ABC News yesterday that you could get Abrego Garcia back if you wanted to. Do you think President Bukele would turn you down if you made that request?
I really don't know. I know that he's been a great friend of our country. He's gotten a lot less money than this would take from us if we were going to build these jails and do what he's doing. And they run a very professional operation. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. I really leave that to the lawyers, and I take my advice from Pam and everybody that is very much involved. They know the laws, and we follow the laws exactly.
Mr. President,
Yeah,
during the
please.
transition, sir, you frequently took credit for the stock market highs. You said it was a reflection of how well you were doing in the polls, and then after you were elected, you said the stock market highs were a reflection of how well the transition's going and the American people's confidence in your incoming administration. Now, the stock market's not doing so well, and you're saying that's the Biden stock market, yet you are the president. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'm not taking credit or discredit for the stock market. I'm just saying that we inherited a mess, both at the borders. You could look at every single one of the people here, and no matter who it is, they're doing better, and they are far superior to what took place for 4 years before us. When you look at prisoners being allowed to come into our country at will, just at will, people from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers, when you look at that, what they've done to our country, and also having to do with finance, look at what happened with inflation. We had the worst inflation probably in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but I would say in the history of our country, it ate away at people. And even though you saw a stock market going up somewhat, because in my case, I had the biggest market increase, 88% in the last term, in my last term. But I don't view the stock market as the end all. It's an indicator. But what the stock market really tells you, and when you look at the stock market in this case, is it says how bad a situation we inherited. This is a quarter that we looked at today, and we took all of us together. We came in on January 20th. So this is Biden, and you could even say the next quarter is sort of Biden, because it doesn't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis. But we're turning it around. It's a big ship to turn around, and we're going to have the greatest country financially in the history of the world, I believe. I think we're going to do things and we had to do it. We reset the table. We were being ripped off by every single country, with just about, without exception. I'd have to really think hard for who hasn't taken advantage. And I don't even blame the countries. I blame the person that was sitting right now for allowing it to happen, where our country was ripped off on trade, hundreds of billions of dollars, and now we're doing better than we've done in a long time. You know, we were losing $4 to $5 to even $6 billion a day on trade with Biden, and now we have it down to a very manageable number, and the tariffs, for the most part, haven't even kicked in yet. So that's the way. Stock markets, to me, are an indication. But the big indication is what's happening, and the people around the table know what's happening. Yes.
The Ukraine minerals deal is set to be signed in 24 hours or
What's
so.
it?
Is it true that the Ukraine minerals deal is about to be signed in the next 24 hours or so? There's some reports saying that. And if it's true, has the deal changed at all from the last time we heard about it?
Well, I'll ask Scott to answer the question because he's responsible for it.
Yeah, our side's ready to sign. Ukrainians decided last night to make some last-minute changes. We're sure that they will reconsider that, and we are ready to sign this afternoon if they are.
Can you talk about those last-minute changes? What was removed or put in its place?
Nothing's been removed. It's the same agreement that we agreed to on the weekend. No changes on our side.
Just to put that in perspective, though, when I came here, I said, how much money have we given to Ukraine? The real number is about $350 billion. It's unthinkable. And we had no security. We had no nothing. We were just pouring money there, unsecured money, putting it in banks, and anybody could have taken it out. You know, anybody over there, it was their decision. I've never seen anything like it. Europe, on the other hand, which is obviously that whole situation is much more important to Europe because we have an ocean in between. But Europe gave about $100 billion. It's a lot of money. It's a big sacrifice they made also. But they gave much less than, and their money is secured, totally secured, by deposits in banks. The deposits are largely Russian deposits. That's what Europe did, but their money is secured. So they gave $100 billion totally secured. We gave money like it's throwing it out the window. And it was done by Biden, and this is Biden's war. This isn't Trump's war. I'm trying to get out. And more than the money, they're losing about 5,000 young Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week, mostly. There's some people also being in towns where missiles should not have been shot, small cities and towns. But we are trying to save the lives of about 5,000 young, mostly soldiers, that are losing their lives a week. I see satellite photos, probably off one of his satellites, come to think of it, but I see satellite photos every week of fields with arms and heads and legs scattered all over. It's a violent, violent, horrible situation. And more important than the money, I want to save the lives of people from other countries that are dying so stupidly, so needlessly, and they're dying. But I said, what are we doing? How did we get into this war? Would have never happened if I were president. Everybody knows, and it didn't happen for 4 years. Wasn't even thought of. I discussed it with President Putin a lot. Ukraine, it was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going to do anything. Zero chance. And I said, you know, we feel foolish. The Europeans are putting up money. It's totally secure. They get the money back. We're putting up much more money. We have absolutely nothing. And I didn't want to make a complicated deal. I didn't want to make a deal that couldn't be made because Ukraine doesn't have very much money. They're going through a very bad period of time. It's been brutal. But I felt very foolish being a judge. So I said, well, we'll do something for our efforts beyond what you would think would be acceptable. And we said rare earth. They have very good rare earth. As you know, we're looking for rare earth all the time. Rare earth is called rare for a reason. And they have a lot. And we made a deal where our money is secure, where we can start digging and doing what we have to do. It's also good for them because you'll have an American presence, and the American presence will, I think, keep a lot of bad actors out of the country, or certainly out of the area where we're doing the digging. So we made a deal, and I assume they're going to honor the deal. And, I put Scott in charge, and Scott's done it beautifully, but we haven't really seen the fruits of that deal yet. I suspect we will.
Mr. President, in progress. You had set a 90-day deadline through an executive order for Secretaries Hegseth and Noem to review whether to recommend to you whether to invoke the Insurrection Act to send troops to the southern border. Is that something you're still considering?
Well, I'm talking to them, and it's not hard and fast, but I'm talking to them, and I will tell you that the border is the most secure it's ever been. We have never had anything like it. And when you said, Christy, before, it's 99.999, and I guess that means one person maybe, or two people. It's actually turned out to be 3 people came across the border versus hundreds of thousands of people under Biden. And we're talking about people coming. Look, people, they have souls, they have hearts. Many of them are good, but we have a country that's under siege. We have a country that really is under, I think it's under attack. In many ways, worse than under attack, because there are no uniforms. You don't know who the attacker is, so you really don't. It's not like you're fighting an army. You're fighting people, you don't even know who they are. But 11,888 murderers, many of them murdered far more than one person, are roaming. Now, some of them have already been caught. A lot of them have already been caught and taken out. But we're being impeded by judges from doing our job. And hopefully that situation is going to be solved, because I think nobody wants to have murderers and people from jail and serious, serious crime. I remember the Biden people used to say, no, these are aliens that came into our country and they don't commit crime. I said, they don't commit crime, they commit worse crime. They make our criminals. Some of these people that they've allowed in through open border policies, the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You can look at some of these people and you say, this is not going to end well. But the people that they've allowed into our country are making our criminals look like the nicest people on earth. I will tell you, these are serious criminals. These are violent criminals. These are people that would kill you and wouldn't lose an ounce of sleep, and they wake up the next morning and they don't even remember it. This is a rough, tough group of people, and we've got to get them out of our country. And the law says, I believe, I hope, and I think Pam will be very successful in proving it, but we've run into, I would call them rogue judges. Somebody could criticize me for that. These are rogue judges. These are radical left, generally radical left, horrible judges. And we didn't lose all of these people. You know, we've lost a lot of people to death and to rape, all sorts of crimes committed by the people that poured into our country. And they came in totally unimpeded. just come on in. And you see it every night. You'd see thousands and tens of thousands of people pouring in. We have no idea who they are. And to this day, we're looking for people. We have no idea. We hear that we have terrorists in our country that are so bad, they couldn't stay in any other country, but we're getting them out. And the group between Pete and Christie and Tom Holman and everybody working together, people that you would least suspect are reporting them, and the public is reporting them. The public is seeing. The public is calling and they're saying, you know, I live in a house and next to me moved in a group of people and they are very violent. And would go and would find out and would say, yeah, you're right, they were really violent. And we have information on most of them. So I just think it's incredible what's taken place. But we right now have a very, very secure border. Right now we have the most secure border in the history of our country. So I don't think we have to worry about your question too much.
Mr. President, as Prime Minister of Canada ran against, not only against the Conservatives, but also against you. Yesterday, yesterday he spoke about American betrayal. Are you interested in rebuilding relations with Canada, and if so, how?
No, well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, "Let's make a deal." You know, he was running for office. They both hated Trump, and it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the conservative hated me much more than the so-called liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy. But no, I spoke to him yesterday. Couldn't have been nicer, and I congratulated him. You know, it was a very mixed signal because it's almost even, which makes it very complicated for the country. It's a pretty tight race, but he's a very nice gentleman, and he's going to come to the White House very shortly, within the next week or less.
Mr. President, when will you speak to President Xi of China?
That'll happen. I mean, look, right now, and I told you before, they're having tremendous difficulty because their factories are not doing business. They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. You know, somebody said, "Oh, the shelves are going to be open." Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30. You know, and maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way. They have ships that are loaded up with stuff, much of which, not all of it, but much of which we don't need. And we have to make a fair deal. We've been ripped off by every country in the world, but China, I would say, is the leading one, the leading candidate for the chief ripper offer. There has never been a country that's been ripped off more than the United States of America under some of the dumbest leadership. And it usually starts with the president. And you can go back, and I'm not just talking about Biden. It's been the worst. I mean, the trade deficits and everything else, he's been the worst. But he had no idea what he was doing. And I think somebody ought to look at the auto pen to find out who was really running this country, because it wasn't Biden. Because nobody could agree to what he agreed to. I mean, he put our country at risk, at tremendous risk, and fiscal risk, financial risk. So I think we have it very much. I really believe that the next 100 days is going to be even better than this. Look, I read an editorial yesterday from a group that normally wouldn't write a good, that this is the most consequential presidency in history, in the history of our country. This is not a particular group that would write that kind of an editorial, but they see what we're doing and what we had to do. And I believe if this group, not just me, if this group wasn't here, I think our country was going to be in, if it was lucky, just serious trouble, but a lot worse than that. I think our country could have been a total disaster. Bad things were happening with our country, and we've stemmed the tide, we've turned it around, but we're going to really turn it around over the next 3 years, 3.5 years, we're going to turn it around, and then hopefully it'll be in such great shape. That's to put it in such great condition that it can't be destroyed.
Do you believe
You mentioned this last night in your speech in Macomb, but we're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide injunctions, sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power. specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate this and continue to deliver for the American people on
well,
that
there
aspect?
are ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route. But there is one way that has been used very successfully by 3 presidents, all highly respected, and hopefully we don't have to go that way. But there are ways of mitigating that. I want to thank you all very much. I thought this was an incredible cabinet meeting. I think there's probably has never been a cabinet meeting like this, and you've never seen it on tape, that I can tell you. And I want to just congratulate everybody at the table, but we have a lot of work to do, but we're off to a great start. Thank you very much,
Do you
everybody.
enjoy, Mr. President, living in the White House back second time? How's your life here?
I'm working hard. I like my life. I'm working hard, but I like it because we're doing a lot of good for a lot of people. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.